Rookie camp wraps up, training camp kicks off. Let's talk about a big week for the Nashville Predators.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to this Monday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this beginning of the work week episode with a shout out to our new listeners, our everydayers, and of course, special shout out to our Locked On Predators insiders. We appreciate your support. We love that we get to spend a little bit of your day with you. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News. And can I just say how pumped I am that we are back to 5 days a week here at the Locked On Predators podcast.
That's right. If you were missing us when we were 3 days a week, oh, don't you all fret. We are back. There's so much going on. We've got a lot of storylines to cover, especially this week. Like we said, rookie camp wrapping up today. And then, my friends, training camp, probably the most anticipated training camp in years, kicking off later this week with the Nashville Predators. And of course, Emma and I are going to be here Monday through Friday to talk to you about everything that's going on. Before we dive into all of our topics today, we do want to let you know today's episode's brought to you all by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Emma, I know that we have rookie camp and the rookie showcase that we want to talk about. We also want to talk about some of the upcoming storylines for the week as training camp kicks off. But I do want to give you and I a little shout out, because what people don't probably realize is how much you and I talk before we record these episodes. And friends, it's not like we say, hey, we're going to say this, because what we share on the show, we share in real time and opinions and that. But Emma and I did put on our marketing hats, because I don't know if you have seen the picture online. The Predators Foundation is coming out with their annual calendar with the Nashville Predators, and this year with the Nashville Zoo. Calendars are amazing. Pecorine was February 2018, and I actually still have that page. But there is a picture of Roman Josi feeding a giraffe. And we find it a little distracting that the giraffe's tongue is just basically all you can see in the picture. So we spent some time before we recorded discussing what animals we would put from the Nashville Zoo with the Nashville Predators. And all we want to say is give Roman Josi a falcon, y'all.
And a leather glove.
And a leather glove. Come
That
on.
would be sick. That would be so sick.
Yeah.
And don't make poor little UC Saros pet the rhino. He looked terrified. And frankly, I can't blame him, because I would be too.
Right. 100%. Like, yeah, we were like, I don't know. I think of him as kind of a meerkat kind of guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, we put on our marketing hats, and it was a whole conversation, and you're welcome that we didn't record it. Probably.
It's really a shame that, they don't put us in charge of these things. Just so much wasted potential.
A lot of ideas. Yeah. We also had a whole conversation about saving hippos and mimosas, but we'll table that for the off season next year. And hopefully you'll forget about it. We are today going to talk about some more Nashville Predators news. Of course, rookie camp has been going on the end of last week over the weekend. They've had the rookie showcase. Tampa Bay, Florida Panthers, and Carolina Hurricanes rookies are in town for the rookie showcase. Nashville is hosting that at Fordyce Center, Bellevue. 2 games under their belt so far. Nashville will play their third and final game this afternoon at 1:00. Nashville lost game 1 against Florida 5-2. It was a 3-2 game with just a few minutes left. Nashville opted to go empty net. Florida scored 2 empty net goals. So there was, kind of that 5-2 disparity in the score. This was a very physical game. A very saucy game, not just hits, but kerfuffles after the whistle. And I know this sounds not shocking, but Caitlin Lind was right in there. He made Zachary LaRue look like a Boy Scout in
I
that
know.
first game.
We were talking about it. We're like, Zach LaRue has been uncharacteristically subdued during this entire tournament, it feels like. But
Yeah.
Caitlin, I warned y'all after last year. I was like, the kid is scrappy. He'll get in there.
He is. That's a great word for him. He is scrappy. We talked to Carl Taylor after that first game. It just was kind of asking him about, that extra physicality, that kind of intensity after the whistle. And I thought he had such a great point. He was saying, these are all players who really haven't played contact hockey in the offseason. They've been working on their shot. They've been working on skating. And so this is their first time back being hit, getting slashed. And so, there tend to be those bigger reactions. And you also just have extra eyes on you. There are not only the coaches for the teams that they were drafted by or that they're hoping to make, but you also have scouts there from other teams as well. And so everybody is kind of up a notch. But definitely that first game, a lot of intensity. Also, my friends, a whole lot of goaltender in that game.
Oh,
so,
my Lord, yes.
Magnus Krona, all 6 feet 6 inches of him on a good day, was in net for the Nashville Predators for the first 2 periods.
He now looks small in comparison to
Cooper Black. Made Magnus Krona look fun size, y'all. Cooper Black is the full-size candy bar on Halloween at 6 feet 10 inches. There were 13 feet 4 inches of goaltender in game 1. We talked to Hiroki Gojsic, who scored in that game after game 1, and we were asking him, how did you find some space behind the 6'10" goaltender? And he was saying, I saw him walking around in the hallway, and I was like, oh my God. He was like, he's huge. He really was huge. Game 2 was on Saturday evening. Nashville won game 2 versus the Tampa Bay Lightning Rookies in overtime. Emma, I'm just curious. Do you happen to know the name of the player who scored that overtime game-winning goal?
I think it's a guy that I may have mentioned on the show before and told people to keep an eye on because he is the real deal. A guy by the name of Andrew Gibson.
There it is, friends. Yes, Emma called it. We told you this was a player we're keeping our eye on. Andrew Gibson came into camp. We talked about this last week on the episode and said, look, my goal is to play an NHL game this season. He wants it. And he wants it bad. So that was a really great overtime goal to win it. The Predators tied it up with just a few minutes left in the third period. And then Andrew Gibson, of course, won with that overtime goal. Was there anything else that really stood out to you about that second game, Emma?
I think that we talked to Austin Roost about it after the game. And I think, it was evident to us, but evident clearly to him as well, that it was like, okay, that first game, they kind of shook off the rust and they were kind of getting back into it. They just looked a lot more ready for that second game. They looked more collected. They were, they weren't making as many of the little mistakes. And, a lot of it is a lot of these guys have never played together before, or, they've just started playing together. And so you're not looking for perfection when it comes to, just things like that. But it's little things like communication, breakdowns and things like that can kind of fluster you in a game like that. And we just didn't see a lot of that in the second game. And again, I love the Tanner Molendyk, Andrew Gibson combination on defense. They're both so good.
Nashville fans who have watched this rookie showcase, watched these games in person or online, perhaps you are seeing a glimpse of the future, because those two together really are something to watch. It's been very exciting to see them together, and they really like playing together. We've talked to both of them, and they like playing together. They like kind of how the other one sees the ice. Molendyk, of course, known best for his skating, which in that overtime where you have a little bit more space, you really saw the benefit of Molendyk's skating, just being able to maneuver with a little bit more space and get some speed going. But yeah, the two of them together, that is a little glimpse into what could be the future in Nashville. And I think it was really, really exciting to watch.
I also want to say, I think another guy who stood out to me, especially after watching him in the rookie showcase last year versus this year, one guy that I was really impressed with in the game against Tampa Bay was Reed Schaefer. He was very, I don't want to say, a lot of times guys kind of tend to be a little invisible. They kind of disappear out there, and that's a little bit how I felt about him at last year's tournament. But he was very, very visible. I think that he was doing a lot of, even if he wasn't necessarily scoring goals, he was making plays. He was very physical. He was creating a lot of space. He's a really smooth skater as well. So I just he was doing all the little things right. So he was a guy that, while maybe he didn't show up on the score sheet, I was impressed by him in that game against Tampa.
Yeah, he had a good season in Milwaukee, and I think Carl Taylor and the staff are really looking for him to become, sort of one of the leaders, one of the big guys. Clifford the Big Red Dog, as Adsman calls him, because he's a redhead. Hopefully he wears sunscreen. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Reed Schaefer was in everything, and they did look more settled. They look more polished. The first game, you had just those easy mistakes where people are kind of trying to build chemistry, like turnovers in the defensive zone and that kind of thing. Much cleaner game. And I think a really good game pace through the whole game against Tampa Bay. So again, they are back on the ice this afternoon. I think it's at 1 p.m. Fordyce Center, Bellevue. It's also streamed online at NashvillePredators.com, and they're going to be taking on the Carolina Rookies in the final game of the Rookie Showcase. So be sure you check that out if you can. We talked about Andrew Gibson. We talked about Tanner Molendyk. Want to talk to you a little bit about the youngest player on the rookie camp roster. This guy is making a strong impression in his first two games. We're going to tell you who that is and why we are taking notice coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You have heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we've got something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. To get all of the details, visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Emma, we will wrap up our talk tomorrow about rookie camp and last game again being played today. And then, friends, we're going to turn the page to training camp. Training camp kicks off this week, and leading up to it, we're going to be tackling some of the biggest storylines that we're watching for in training camp. Before we get to the veterans, the new guys, some guy named Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, Scott Wedge, I don't know, some new guys. Want to talk about the youngest player on the roster for rookie camp, born in 2006, which was about 4 days ago. Hiroki Gojsic. He plays for the Kelowna Rockets in the WHL, drafted in the 3rd round this year by the Nashville Predators. 6 feet 3 inches. And here is what is so funny. Emma and I were talking about this when we were watching the second game. He wears number 92, which is Ryan Johansson's number. And a little bit, if you're not paying attention and you zone out for a minute, you have a moment of, he is kind of built like Ryan Johansson.
And it got me thinking, I'm like, wait a minute, isn't technically, Ryan Johansson is still on the Predators payroll. Are they allowed to give out number 92? But I guess they gave out number 14, and Ekholm's still on their payroll too. So sorry, Ann,
that's okay.
but
yeah. Yeah. So, but number 92 scored goals in both of the first 2 games. Talked to him a little bit about his game. And he's like, look, I'm just going to be honest. I'm a shoot first kind of player. Really
that's
soaking.
evident.
Yes. Very evident. And he has a great shot. Again, want to point out, he got the puck past 6 feet, 10 inches of goaltender. So, that's impressive. You really have to sort of place the puck just right to make that happen. But, we got a chance to talk to him. He's really kind of soaking in this experience. This is his first rookie showcase. He was here for Dev Camp. A couple of the other draftees from this year weren't able to make it, but he is here. What do you think, kind of what are your first impressions? This really is just an introduction to Hiroki's game. What do you sort of take away from his performance so far, Emma?
I mean, very, like, you can tell he wants it. You can tell he was hustling up and down that ice.
Yeah.
And he, it's good to see because, these games, these rookie showcase games, they aren't quote unquote real games. They don't count for anything. But it is about these guys, and for him, with this being his first rookie tournament with the Predators, he does have a lot more to prove. A lot of these people haven't really gotten to see him before. And he definitely, his hustle and his work ethic were probably what impressed me the most, as well as his size. I'm going to be honest, I don't think I realized how big he was until I saw him in person.
Right. Well, when you see that someone's born in 2006, you don't realize they can be 6 feet 3.
No, I'm sorry. Someone born in 2006 is an infant. Okay.
It's in
so
4th grade at best.
Yeah, like I can't, my mind can't compute that. 2006 was yesterday, so it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I've been really impressed with him too. You talk about his hustle. One of the things that they have said consistently that they loved about first round draft pick Igor Surin is like his motor's always going. And I think you see a little bit of that in Hiroki as well. And that's something that the Predators, one of those kind of soft skills that the Predators really have been looking for under Barry Trotz.
Well, and I think that it is. And I think that especially is worth noting because with Hiroki Gojsic, for example, just from watching him briefly, maybe not the most polished or skilled guy. I mean, he is skilled, but he lacks some polish. I mean, you watch him and yes, he's big, but you're like, okay, he's young. I think that hustle, that motor, that work ethic, that's not something you can teach, like, especially once you get to this level. It's like that is kind of innate in these guys. And the polish, the skill, those are things you can work on. That's what the coaches are there for. And that, but you have to be able to work on those things. You have to have the right mindset and the right work ethic to want to improve those things. So he definitely, getting this kind of extended look at him this week definitely fits the profile of, the kind of guy, like you said, the Igor Surin, kind of that same build, mentally, at least, in what they're going for.
Yeah. And talking about hard work, I do want to say one of the players that I think really stood out in the first game, and again, not on the score sheet, Ozzy Weisblatt. And I assure you that we're not saying these things because these are players that we predicted. And so we're like, we're going to look really smart and say this.
We're saying it because we are really smart. Okay. And we did call it.
And now we're here to back it up because we were right. Another player, like he talks about, he has talked with us, work ethic, like I'm here to work hard, and you see that in his performance on the ice, like kind of always in it, always in the mix. Ethan Hayter also in net for game 2. I thought he had a really good game.
He looked also really good.
Had a great cheering section. I don't know who is here watching Ethan Hayter, but 100% want to hang out and sit with them because they were super excited watching him. But he had a really good game, I thought.
He did.
Well.
He was locked in. And a lot of times in these showcase games, you see, and we saw it in the first game, that they'll change out goaltenders after the first 2 periods just to, rotate guys in. And he played all 3 periods and overtime in that second game. And he was really locked in. He looked really good, really sharp.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of great insight into some of these younger players. Again, these are players that we're probably not going to see in Nashville this season, but you need to know these guys because not only is Nashville looking to make a deep cup run here in the short term, these are some players that are going to be a part of something pretty important, 5 years from now. So rookie camp again wrapping up today. And then, my friends, training camp coming up. We're going to highlight some big moments that we are looking forward to, and we're going to hear from some of our Locked On Predators insiders about what they are looking forward to. We are also going to hear from a former Predator and what he had to say about Nashville and the Central Division this season. If you are looking to talk Nashville Predators hockey past the podcast, Emma and I want to invite you to join our Locked On Predators Insider program via subtext. It's a chance for our listeners to connect with Emma and I beyond the podcast. You can ask your questions. You'll get breaking news and instant analysis. We're going to have some in-game special features for our insiders as well. Training camp's kicking off. It's a great time to join the insider community. You can find information on our insider program below in the description or check out the link in our bio for more information. Training camp this week. We have been waiting. I mean, July 1st, and we heard what Nashville has done, and we're like, is it time? Is it time? Is it time? This week, friends, you will see Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault in Nashville Predators jerseys on the ice. It's going to be amazing. Training camp kicks off, I believe, Wednesday. On ice starts on Thursday. Of course, we will have details and information and storylines coming from that. Did reach out to our insiders and said, hey, what are you most looking forward to when it comes to training camp? What are you interested to see? And this is some of what they had to say. How the lines look, and of course, how that 2C situation gets solved. Does Novak or Stamkos get that role? Also interested to see how the young guys develop. So a lot of the players from Rookie Showcase are coming right into training camp. They've kind of had this 6-day period to run up. So it's going to be interesting to see how do they do when they're thrown in on the ice with Philip Forsberg, Roman Josi, Steven Stamkos, all of those players. I would agree, Emma. I think the biggest storyline is Steven Stamkos in that 2C spot. Is he going to be a center? Is he going to be a winger? Is Tommy Novak going to be given a bigger role? I can't wait for the first line rushes.
I think that I just want to say, just a reminder, the lines that you see in training camp or even the preseason games are not set in stone. It's not going to be necessarily what we're going to see on opening night. Also, I would like to say, you mentioned that 2C situation, Stamkos, Novak. Also, I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear this, but do not rule out the possibility of Colton Sissons being in that role, least to start the season. Andrew Brunette loves Colton Sissons, and for very good reason. He's the kind of guy you know exactly what you're going to get from him. Is he your long-term solution as a 2C? No, but he can play that role and play it well if he needs to. Again, that's not the goal. He's definitely more of like a 3C kind of guy, but I would just not rule that out as a possibility.
Yeah. If you are looking to get Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault, if they are together on a line, if you're looking to get them up and running and comfortable with what Andrew Brunette wants, Colton Sissons is a great person to get them up to speed quickly because, like you said, he can play center in his sleep. He's just very reliable. And again, he's not going to be your long-term solution, but I agree with you. I think that's well worth mentioning. Another thing that one of our insiders said is hearing from Jonathan Marchessault. So we just have had brief availability with Marchessault right when he signed, and also which Admirals invitees have a good camp. The other thing that Chris, our insider, mentioned, and I think we're just all sitting here watching with you, Chris, is where does the Tomasino story end up? We're waiting.
Your guess is as good as ours right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is something that we're going to be following, of course, this week as well, Chris. But absolutely agree with you. What is going to happen with Phil Tomasino? Are they going to announce a deal? Is he going to get another shot? What is in the works for him? And Jonathan Marchessault, getting to know him as well. And finally, another insider said, excited to see the results of new players creating chemistry, which is so important in training camp, and observing Scott Wedgwood. Look, Nashville made a big decision when they signed Scott Wedgwood. That 2-year deal impacted what happened with Yaroslav Askarov. Yes, the UC Saros 8-year deal did as well. But, the Predators made some long-term decisions to bring in Scott Wedgwood. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyes watching him as well in training camp. I do think, though, Emma, overall, this is going to be probably one of the most exciting training camps. I remember the training camp where Yaroslav Askarov finally got here from Russia and pulled into Centennial, and the parking lot was packed. And I'm like, what is going on here? And you go in and people are like pressed up against the glass watching Askarov. That's going to be everybody watching Steven Stamkos in a gold jersey. So it's going to be a really fun training camp. We are not the only ones, though, that are excited about Nashville's potential this season. NHL Network commentator Stu Grimson, 30-game Nashville Predator legend Stu Grimson, was on the show talking about the Central Division. And this is what he said. He said, Nashville is capable of anything this year, in my estimation. And went on to say they could potentially win the division. It's a tall order. He admits it's a tall order in the Central Division. But Stu Grimson is not ruling anything out. I don't know. Emma, what do you think about that very bold take by Stu Grimson on NHL Network?
I mean, it is bold, but I don't think it's crazy. I think that absolutely on paper they are capable of anything. But again, don't play the game on paper. We love to say that. But I think that they certainly have the pieces. Like if you are just trying to build a dream team, like they have the pieces to make it happen. But again, I still think it's best to keep, expectations in moderation when it comes to that. Like, will they be in the mix for the Central Division title? I think that that's a reasonable expectation. Are they a lock to win it? No. But I think that, they're definitely going to be in that conversation now, especially now it looks like, Minnesota doesn't really know what they're doing. St. Louis doesn't really know what they're doing. We know Chicago is at the bottom.
Yep.
We don't know what Utah is really doing. Winnipeg, I think, by all accounts, has taken a step back. So it's really, you kind of just got Dallas and Colorado to contend with. Now, that's not nothing. Like, those are two very difficult teams to contend with. But I think that, now the Predators are at least going to be seen as, on the same level.
Yes, which is going to be very nice because they really haven't been for several years. No matter how much Nashville made moves at the trade deadline to make that deep playoff push in recent years, they just haven't been able to do it. The other thing that I think is going to be fun to watch for Nashville, and this is one of the things that I like about what Barry Trotz is doing, and Stu Grimson talked about this, Jonathan Marchessault playing the best hockey of his career in his 30s. Steven Stamkos is granted on what people would consider the tail end of his career. That ain't too shabby. And I like that Barry Trotz really looks at these veterans and says, we can get more out of these guys. We saw it, with Ryan O'Reilly. We saw it with Gustav Nyquist last season. Age is not a disease, y'all. And Barry Trotz is banking on what these veterans bring. So I think getting into training camp, seeing where they are, and the thing that I think, and you mentioned this, the thing I think that is going to need patience is that chemistry. We've got Steven Stamkos that's in his first different hockey jersey of his career. Jonathan Marchessault has been with Vegas for so long. So it's going to take some time to develop chemistry. But Look, here's what's real. Emma and I are going to be there. We're going to be reporting on what is happening at training camp. We're going to keep you up to date. We're also going to talk through in more detail some of these big storylines coming up in training camp. And tomorrow we will also wrap up our coverage of the rookie showcase. It is a big week for the Nashville Predators. Again, big week for us here at Locked On Predators. We're back to 5 days a week. Before we sign off on this Monday episode, though, Emma, will you let everyone know where they can find you and where they can find your work?
Yes, you can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio as well. That's going to do it for this Monday episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, go and check out the Locked On NHL National Show. They've got insights and analysis from local coverage that you're going to want to have ahead of training camps kicking off this week. We will be back tomorrow with, again, an all-new episode. Hope you guys have a great Monday. We'll see you then.